One man's battle for freedom sometimes begins in unexpected ways. Isaiah Thompson's story started taking shape on just such a night, in the dark forests of Alabama. But what happened that night wasn't just the beginning of an escape story. It was the first step of a much more complex, much more dangerous plan. And to bring this plan to life, Isaiah was going to risk everything, maybe even his life. It was autumn of 1853. The Caldwell plantation in Alabama's Wilcox County owned one of the largest cotton fields in the region. But beneath these lands lay not just cotton, but countless pain and suffering. Isaiah Thompson wasn't born here. He'd been brought from Louisiana, from a plantation near New Orleans, 5 years ago after losing his family. That day was still vivid in Isaiah's mind. His mother and little sister had been sold to another plantation. His father had been caught trying to escape and punished in front of everyone. From that day forward, Isaiah understood that nothing would ever be the same. To survive, physical strength alone wasn't enough. You needed intelligence too, strategy. When Isaiah arrived at Caldwell Plantation, he was 23 years old. He had a powerful build, so he was put to work on the heaviest tasks. But no one could see what was turning behind his eyes. Every day, every hour, every minute, Isaiah thought about freedom. But he wouldn't make a foolish escape attempt, not like his father did. No, he would be different. He would be calculated, and he would succeed. Master Caldwell was a 45-year-old man with cold eyes. He ruled his plantation with an iron fist. He saw the enslaved people as nothing but tools. They were as worthless in his eyes as the cotton in the field, maybe even less. Because cotton had monetary value, while the enslaved only cost money. You had to feed them, shelter them, and sometimes even treat their wounds. It was all expense in Caldwell's ledger. But Caldwell had one weakness: his arrogance. He believed no one could outsmart him. He believed the enslaved were too simple-minded to form complex plans. This arrogance would be his downfall, and Isaiah knew it. The plan began forming in Isaiah's mind on a September evening. He was working in the stables when he overheard a conversation. Two overseers were talking about a new law. Bounty hunters were now getting paid more for capturing runaways, much more. This meant escape routes were becoming more dangerous. Patrols were increasing. Dogs were being trained better. Most people would see this as bad news. But Isaiah saw an opportunity. If everyone believed escape was more impossible now, they would be less vigilant. They would assume no one would be foolish enough to try. And that's exactly when you should try. But Isaiah wasn't going to run blindly into the woods like so many others had done. He'd seen the results, caught within days, brought back, punished severely, made examples of. No, his plan had to be different. It had to be so unexpected that no one would see it coming. The first step was gathering information. Isaiah started paying attention to everything: guard rotation schedules, which dogs were used on which nights, where the patrols concentrated their efforts, which directions escapees typically ran. He memorized it all. He also started talking to other enslaved people, carefully, never revealing his true intentions, just asking questions that seemed innocent. "Have you heard about anyone trying to escape lately? What happened to that person who ran last month? Do you know which way the river flows from here?" One person he talked to was Samuel. Samuel was 60 years old and had been enslaved his entire life. He'd never tried to escape, but he knew stories. Stories passed down from others who had tried. Stories about routes, safe houses, dangers to avoid. Isaiah spent months earning Samuel's trust, and slowly Samuel began sharing what he knew. "The ones who make it," Samuel told him one night in hushed tones, "they don't run fast. They run smart. They don't follow the obvious paths. They create diversions. They make the hunters look in the wrong direction." This was exactly what Isaiah needed to hear. Confirmation that his approach was right. Don't just run. Create a strategy. The second person who became crucial to his plan was Rebecca. She appeared at the plantation in October, bought from a failing farm in Georgia. She was 24 years old, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Isaiah recognized something in her immediately. She was like him. She was planning something. They didn't speak about it at first. Too dangerous. But they communicated through glances, through small gestures. And slowly, they found ways to talk privately. In the fields, where conversations could be hidden among the rustling cotton plants. In the smokehouse, where the noise covered their whispers. "I've tried once before," Rebecca admitted to him one evening. 2 years ago, I made it almost to Tennessee before they caught me. "What went wrong?" Isaiah asked. "I was alone, and I was too afraid to trust anyone I met along the way. The Underground Railroad exists, but you have to know who to trust. I didn't." "What if you didn't go alone this time?" Isaiah asked carefully. Rebecca's eyes locked with his. "You're planning something." "Maybe." "I'm in." But Isaiah knew 2 people escaping together wouldn't be enough. They needed something more, a distraction, something big enough to pull all the attention away from them. And then the idea came to him. It was risky, incredibly risky. But if it worked, it would be brilliant. The plan was this. They wouldn't just escape. They would make it look like a much larger escape was happening. They would leave false trails, create fake evidence, make the hunters chase ghosts while they slipped away in a completely different direction. To do this, they needed help. But they couldn't tell anyone the full plan. Too dangerous. If anyone was caught and tortured, they couldn't reveal what they didn't know. So Isaiah and Rebecca divided the plan into pieces. They told different people different small tasks, making each task seem unrelated to the others. To one person, "Can you steal some rope from the barn?" To another, "If you hear dogs barking 3 nights from now, make sure you're loud in your cabin. Sing, make noise." To another, "Drop this piece of cloth near the east fence tomorrow." Nobody knew what these small acts were building toward, except Isaiah and Rebecca. November arrived with cold winds. Perfect. Cold weather meant the dogs would have a harder time picking up scents. It also meant fewer people would be outside at night. The guards would huddle by fires rather than patrolling as vigilantly. Isaiah chose November 15th as the night, a moonless night, the darkest of the month. 3 days before the escape, Isaiah made his first major move. He stole a set of work tools from the storage shed, deliberately, and made sure he left enough evidence to be caught. The next morning, the overseers found the tools hidden in the quarters and immediately suspected him. Master Caldwell himself came to question Isaiah. "You think you can steal from me, boy?" Isaiah looked down, playing the role perfectly. "No, sir, Master Caldwell. I swear I didn't take nothing." Caldwell struck him across the face. "Liar! Those tools were found in your area. Maybe someone put them there to get me in trouble, Master." This was the seed Isaiah wanted to plant. Distrust, suspicion among the enslaved. It would make the overseers focus their attention inward, watching for conflicts among the quarters, rather than watching for escape attempts. Caldwell had Isaiah locked in the disciplinary shed for 2 days. No food, minimal water. It was brutal, but it was part of the plan. Because on the night of November 14th, when Isaiah was released, everyone would assume he was too weak to try anything. Rebecca played her part too. She started a public argument with another woman in the quarters, loud enough for the overseers to hear, about a stolen blanket, petty, meaningless. But it reinforced the narrative Isaiah had started. Internal conflicts, no unity, no planning. On the morning of November 15th, Isaiah was released from the shed. He stumbled back to the quarters, looking weak and defeated. Perfect. That day he worked in the fields like normal, slowly, painfully, making sure everyone saw how much the punishment had taken out of him. When evening came, he ate his small portion of food and retreated to his cabin early. But inside, his heart was racing. Tonight was the night. Everything he'd planned for months would either succeed or fail in the next few hours. As darkness fell, Isaiah lay on his wooden plank, eyes open, counting the minutes. Around him, other people settled into sleep. The sounds of the plantation at night were familiar. Distant dogs, guards talking by their fire, the creak of buildings in the wind. At midnight, Isaiah rose silently. He'd prepared his body for this. Years of hard labor had made him strong. 2 days of punishment had made others believe he was weak. But he'd been storing his energy, mentally preparing. He slipped out of his cabin. Rebecca was already waiting in the shadows by the smokehouse, exactly as planned. "Ready," she whispered. Isaiah nodded. They moved like ghosts through the plantation grounds, not toward the main gates, not toward the obvious escape routes. Instead, they went south, toward the swampy area that everyone avoided, the area where the ground was treacherous and the snakes were plentiful. It was exactly the direction no one would expect them to go. Behind them, their carefully planted distractions were about to begin. In different parts of the plantation, the small tasks Isaiah had assigned were creating a symphony of confusion. Rope left near the north fence, cloth pieces scattered toward the east, unusual sounds from the quarters. By tomorrow morning, when their absence was discovered, the hunters would find all these false trails. They would assume Isaiah and Rebecca had accomplices. They would assume a large, coordinated escape attempt. They would send dogs and men in every direction, except the one direction the 2 escapees had actually gone, south, into the swamp, where freedom waited on the other side. Isaiah and Rebecca waded into the cold, murky water. Every step was careful, every sound mattered. Behind them, the plantation slowly disappeared into the darkness. Ahead of them lay uncertainty, danger, and hope. The first phase of the plan was complete. Now came the hard part, survival. The swamp water rose to their waists as Isaiah and Rebecca pushed deeper into the marshland. The cold bit through their thin clothing, but they couldn't stop. Not yet. Every minute of distance between them and Caldwell plantation was precious. Isaiah had studied this swamp for months from a distance. He knew it stretched for nearly 3 miles before reaching dry ground on the other side. 3 miles of treacherous terrain that most people avoided, but that's exactly why it was their best route. The dogs would lose their scent in the water. The hunters would assume they'd gone the easier paths. "Keep your feet moving," Isaiah whispered to Rebecca. "Don't let yourself sink into the mud." They moved slowly, testing each step before putting their full weight down. The water was dark, impossible to see through. Beneath the surface, their feet encountered twisted roots, sharp branches, and things they didn't want to identify. The sounds of the swamp surrounded them, frogs croaking, water rippling, unknown creatures moving through the darkness. After an hour of wading, Rebecca's breathing became labored. "Isaiah, I need to rest." "Not yet. We need to reach the hollow cypress Samuel told me about. It's another mile ahead. We can rest there until dawn." Samuel's knowledge had been invaluable. The old man had never escaped himself, but he'd listened to stories for 60 years. He knew this land better than anyone. He'd told Isaiah about a massive hollow cypress tree in the heart of the swamp, a place where someone could hide, dry off, and wait safely. And wait. "How did Samuel know about it?" Rebecca asked between breaths. "His brother tried to escape 40 years ago, made it this far before turning back, too scared to continue alone. But he remembered landmarks. He told Samuel everything before he died." They pushed forward. The water grew deeper in places, sometimes reaching their chests. Isaiah held his small bundle of supplies above his head. Inside the oilcloth wrapping were matches, a knife he'd stolen months ago, and dried meat he'd saved from his rations over weeks. Not much, but enough to make a difference. Behind them, miles away, the plantation remained quiet. Their absence wouldn't be discovered until morning roll call. By then, they'd be deep enough into the swamp that even the best dogs would struggle to track them. That was the theory, at least. Isaiah knew theories and reality were often different things. "There," Isaiah pointed ahead. Through the darkness, silhouetted against the slightly lighter sky, stood an enormous cypress tree. Its trunk was at least 10 feet wide, and near its base a dark hollow opened like a mouth. They reached the tree and pulled themselves out of the water. The hollow was just as Samuel had described, large enough for two people to sit comfortably, dry inside, protected from the wind. Isaiah helped Rebekah inside, then followed. They sat in the darkness, dripping wet, shivering, but alive, still free. "We made it through the first part," Rebekah said softly. "The easiest part," Isaiah replied. "Tomorrow it gets harder." He pulled out the dried meat and broke it in half. They ate in silence, letting their bodies recover. Outside, the swamp continued its nocturnal symphony. Isaiah knew they couldn't light a fire. Too risky. Even in the middle of the swamp, light could be seen from a distance. So they sat in the cold darkness, waiting for dawn. "Tell me about Louisiana," Rebekah said after a while. "You never talk about before." Isaiah was quiet for a long moment. "Not much to tell. My family was separated when I was young. Father tried to escape. They made an example of him. That's why I waited. That's why I planned. I wouldn't let what happened to him happen to me." "Where do you think they are now? Your mother and sister?" "I don't know. Sold somewhere. Could be anywhere. But that's why I have to make it. If I'm free, maybe I can find them. Maybe I can buy their freedom somehow." "That's a good dream," Rebekah said. "But what about you? What will you do if we make it?" Rebekah's voice hardened. "I'm going back, eventually. When I'm strong enough, when I have resources, I'm going back for others. My brother is still enslaved in Georgia. I won't leave him there forever." Isaiah understood that determination. It was the same fire that burned in him. They dozed fitfully through the remaining night hours. Every sound made them alert. Every splash of water could be a hunter. Every bark in the distance could be dogs. But the sounds never came closer. When dawn light began filtering through the swamp, Isaiah peered out of the hollow. The world looked different in daylight. The water that had seemed endless in darkness was revealed as a maze of channels between cypress trees and patches of solid ground. Spanish moss hung from branches like gray curtains. The beauty of it was haunting. "We move now," Isaiah said, "before full daylight. We need to reach the far edge of the swamp and find cover in the forest beyond." They climbed down from the hollow and entered the water again. Their bodies protested, cold, exhausted, hungry. But they pushed forward. This was the test. Could they endure the hardship long enough to reach safety? The sun rose higher. The swamp came alive with birds and insects. Isaiah kept them moving at a steady pace, not too fast to exhaust them, not too slow to waste time. He'd calculated they had until midday before the plantation would organize a proper search party, maybe longer if his distractions worked as planned. By mid-morning, they reached the far edge of the swamp. The ground began to rise. The water became shallower. Finally, they stepped onto solid earth for the first time in hours. Their legs nearly collapsed. They'd been wading through water for so long that walking on land felt strange. "There," Rebekah pointed. Ahead, a dense forest stretched northward, cover, concealment, their next refuge. They hurried into the tree line and collapsed behind a fallen log. For several minutes they just breathed, letting their bodies rest. "We need to keep moving," Isaiah said eventually. "But first, we need to change our strategy." "What do you mean?" Isaiah had been thinking about this all night. Everyone who escapes heads north, straight north toward free states. That's what the hunters expect. That's where they'll concentrate their search. So what do? We go northwest, then west, then north again. We zigzag. It takes longer, but it's safer. And there's something else. Isaiah pulled out a small piece of paper from his bundle. He'd memorized what was written on it, but seeing the words gave him confidence. "What is that?" Rebekah leaned closer. "Samuel gave it to me the day before I was locked up. He said his brother didn't just explore the swamp, he also heard about safe houses, places where people help runaways. This is a name and a direction. The paper read, Ezra Mills, 20 miles northwest. Mill on the creek. 3 knocks, 2 knocks, 1 knock. Who is Ezra Mills? Rebecca asked. Samuel didn't know much, just that his brother heard the name from someone years ago. It might be nothing. The man might be dead or moved. But it's a chance. 20 miles. We could make that in 2 days if we push hard. Isaiah shook his head. No. We travel only at night. Hide during the day. It'll take us 4 or 5 days, but we'll be invisible. Rebecca looked at him with new respect. You really thought of everything, didn't you? I tried, but plans only work until they don't. We have to be ready to adapt. They spent the day hidden behind the log, taking turns sleeping while the other kept watch. The forest was alive with sounds. Birds, squirrels, distant cattle, normal sounds, peaceful sounds. No dogs, no shouting men, no gunshots. As afternoon faded into evening, Isaiah felt a glimmer of hope. They'd made it through the first full day. They were still free. When darkness fell, they began moving again. Isaiah used the stars to navigate northwest. He'd learned the patterns from his father years ago. The North Star, Orion's belt, the constellations that pointed the way to freedom. They walked through the night, staying in the forest, avoiding open fields and roads. Every few hours, Isaiah would stop and listen, testing the silence, making sure they weren't being followed. By dawn of the second day, they'd covered nearly 10 miles, halfway to the mill. They found shelter in a dense thicket of bushes and settled in for another day of hiding. Isaiah rationed out the last of their dried meat. After this, they'd need to forage or risk going hungry. Tomorrow night, Isaiah said, we might reach Ezra Mills, if he exists, if he helps us. If not, we keep moving. There are other safe houses farther north. The Underground Railroad is real. We just have to find it. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Isaiah, when we were in the swamp, you said your father's escape attempt failed because he wasn't careful enough. But you're being more than careful. You're being brilliant. Where did you learn to think like this? Isaiah smiled slightly. My father taught me something before he died. He said, Isaiah, strength can break chains, but intelligence can prevent chains from ever being put on. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. Every enslaved person is strong. We have to be to survive, but to be free, we need more than strength. We need strategy. You sound like you could lead an army, Rebecca said. Maybe someday, if we make it north, if we find freedom, maybe there's something I can do, something bigger than just saving myself. The day passed slowly. They slept in shifts, stayed alert, stayed hidden, no signs of pursuit. Either the false trails were working or the hunters were further behind than Isaiah hoped. Either way, every hour of silence was a gift. That evening, as they prepared to move again, Rebecca spotted something. Isaiah, look! In the distance, barely visible through the trees, was smoke rising from a chimney. A building, civilization. We need to circle around it, Isaiah said. Can't risk being seen. They gave the building a wide berth, moving carefully through the forest. As they passed it, Isaiah caught a glimpse of the structure. It was a mill, a water mill built beside a creek. His heart jumped. Could that be it? Rebecca whispered. Only one way to find out. But not yet. We wait until full dark. We watch for a while, make sure it's safe. They found a hiding spot with a clear view of the mill and waited. As night fell, they saw a light appear in a window. Someone was home. But was it Ezra Mills? And if so, would he help them? Isaiah's hand unconsciously touched the knife hidden in his clothes. He hoped he wouldn't need it, but he was prepared for anything. They'd come too far to fail now. The third night of their escape was about to test everything Isaiah had planned, and what happened next would determine if they'd ever taste freedom, or if they'd be dragged back to Caldwell plantation in chains. They watched the mill for 2 hours. The light in the window remained steady, no movement outside, no signs of other people, just one building, one light, and the sound of the creek flowing past the water wheel. "We need to decide," Rebecca whispered. "We can't stay hidden here forever. Dawn is only a few hours away." Isaiah knew she was right. This was the moment. Trust the information Samuel had given him, or keep moving and risk running out of supplies and energy. He thought about his father. His father had been too impulsive, too desperate. Isaiah had promised himself he'd be different, calculated, but calculation also meant knowing when to take necessary risks. "We go," Isaiah decided, "but carefully. I'll approach first. You stay hidden. If anything goes wrong, you run. Don't wait for me. Head northwest and find the next safe house." "Isaiah, no, we go together." "Rebecca, think. If we both get caught, it's over. But if you stay free, you can still make it. You can still go back for your brother. That matters more than both of us getting caught." She wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. "Fine. But if I hear any trouble, I'm coming for you." Isaiah moved out of the hiding spot and approached the mill slowly. Every step was deliberate. Every shadow was analyzed. The building was larger up close, 2 stories. The mill wheel turning slowly in the creek, a small stable attached to one side. Everything looked ordinary, too ordinary or perfectly safe. He reached the front door. His hand was shaking slightly, not from fear, from anticipation, from the weight of this moment. Everything depended on what happened next. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks, pause, 1 knock, silence. Isaiah's heart pounded. Had he made a mistake? Was this the wrong place? Or had the code changed over the years since Samuel's brother heard about it? Then footsteps inside. Slow, cautious footsteps. The door opened a crack. A man's face appeared. He was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and suspicious eyes. "Who are you?" the man asked quietly. "My name is Isaiah. I was told to find Ezra Mills." The man's expression didn't change. "Who told you that?" "A friend. Someone who heard the name many years ago. Someone who believed you might help people traveling north." The man studied Isaiah for a long moment. Then he opened the door wider. "You're alone?" "No. My companion is watching from the woods, making sure this is safe." "Smart. Call them in quickly." Isaiah turned and made a soft bird call. Rebecca emerged from the shadows and hurried to the door. The man ushered them both inside and shut the door immediately. The interior of the mill was warm. A fire burned in the hearth. The room was simple but comfortable. Tools hung on walls. Bags of grain sat in corners. It looked exactly like a working mill should look. "I'm Ezra Mills," the man said, "and yes, I help people on their way north. But you need to understand something. What I do is dangerous. For me and for you. If I help you and you get caught, they'll torture you until you tell them about me. They'll come here and hang me. So before we go any further, I need to know you understand that." "We understand," Isaiah said. "We won't give you up, no matter what." Ezra studied them both. Then he nodded. "You look exhausted. When did you last eat?" "Yesterday morning," Rebecca admitted. Ezra moved to a cupboard and pulled out bread, cheese, and dried apples. "Eat, not too fast or you'll make yourself sick. While you eat, tell me where you came from and what your plan is." Between bites, Isaiah explained, the Caldwell plantation, the false trails, the swamp crossing, the careful navigation northwest. As he spoke, Ezra's expression changed from suspicious to impressed. "You're smarter than most who come through here," Ezra said. "Most runaways just panic and run. They get caught within days, but you actually planned. That's rare." "I had good teachers," Isaiah said, "and I had time to think." "What's your destination?" "North, eventually Canada, but we know it's a long journey. We'll need help along the way." Ezra nodded. "The network exists, not as organized as people think, but it exists. I can get you to the next station, a Quaker family 40 miles north of here. They'll take you further. But you need to rest first. You can stay here tonight and tomorrow. Leave tomorrow evening when it's dark again." "We can't," Isaiah said. "Every hour we stay in one place is an hour they might catch up to us." "Young man, you're not thinking clearly. You're exhausted. You've been walking for 3 nights straight through swamps and forests. Your body needs rest, or it will fail you when you need it most. Trust me, I've seen too many people push themselves until they collapse. Then they get caught because they're too weak to run anymore." Rebecca touched Isaiah's arm. "He's right. We need rest. Real rest." Isaiah wanted to argue, but his body was screaming for sleep. His feet were blistered, his muscles ached, his mind was foggy from exhaustion. "1 night, then we move. 1 full day and night," Ezra corrected. "You'll leave tomorrow evening. I'll give you supplies and directions to the next station, but you sleep properly first." Ezra led them to a small room on the 2nd floor. It had 2 simple beds, a luxury they hadn't experienced in years. "Sleep. I'll wake you for supper this evening. The door locks from the inside. If anyone comes, you'll hear the mill wheel stop turning. That's your signal to hide in the space under the floorboards." He pointed to a section of floor that looked slightly different from the rest. After Ezra left, Isaiah and Rebecca just stared at the beds, actual beds with blankets. It felt surreal. "Do you trust him?" Rebecca asked. "I think so, but we sleep in shifts anyway, just to be safe." Rebecca smiled tiredly. "Always planning, always careful. You really are different from anyone I've ever met." They decided Rebecca would sleep first. Isaiah sat by the window, watching the pre-dawn darkness. His mind kept replaying the last 3 days. Every decision, every close call, every moment of fear and hope. They'd made it this far, further than his father had, further than most ever did. But the journey wasn't over. Canada was still hundreds of miles away. Between here and there were patrols, bounty hunters, harsh weather, and countless dangers. Could they really make it? Isaiah thought about what Rebecca had said earlier, about him sounding like someone who could lead an army. The idea seemed absurd. He was just trying to survive. But maybe that was how leaders were made, not by wanting power, but by refusing to accept chains. Hours passed. Dawn came. The mill wheel kept turning, grinding grain in its endless rhythm. The sound was almost hypnotic. Despite his intention to stay alert, Isaiah felt his eyes growing heavy. He fought it for a while, but eventually, exhaustion won. He woke to Rebecca shaking his shoulder. "Isaiah, it's afternoon." Ezra brought food. They ate together in the small room. Ezra had prepared a proper meal. Hot stew, fresh bread, vegetables. It was more food than they'd seen in months. As they ate, Ezra explained the route north. "Follow the creek west for 5 miles. You'll reach a fork. Take the northern fork. 10 miles up that path is a farm with a red barn. The owner's name is Thomas Webb. He and his wife are Quakers. They'll help you. Tell them Ezra sent you. Use the same knock pattern you used here." "How do we know we can trust them?" Isaiah asked. You don't, just like I didn't know I could trust you. But this network runs on faith. We all risk everything to help people find freedom. Some of us do it because we believe slavery is a sin. Others do it because we remember what it's like to be powerless. Either way, you'll have to trust somebody eventually. Might as well be people who have proven themselves over years. Isaiah absorbed this information. After the webs, they'll tell you the next step. The network works in stages. I only know my part and the next part. That way, if anyone is caught, they can't reveal the entire chain. It's safer for everyone. That evening, as darkness fell, Ezra gave them a bundle of supplies, food for several days, a better knife, a compass, a map showing general terrain features but no specific routes or safe houses marked. The map looks innocent if you're caught with it, Ezra explained. Nothing on it proves you had help, but if you study it, you can figure out where creeks and forests are, where to find cover. Isaiah studied the map carefully, memorizing everything. Then he tucked it into his shirt. Thank you, Rebecca said to Ezra. You're risking your life for us. You're risking your lives for freedom, Ezra replied. That's a risk worth supporting. Now go, move quickly, stay smart, and if you make it to Canada, remember those still in chains. Help them if you can. They left the mill as darkness completed its claim on the sky. The creek guided them west, its gentle sound a companion in the night. Isaiah and Rebecca moved with renewed energy. One day of rest had restored their bodies and their hope. Do you think we'll make it? Rebecca asked after several miles of walking. Isaiah was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I think we have a better chance than most. But even if we don't make it, we tried. And maybe our trying will inspire someone else. Someone smarter, someone stronger, someone who will succeed where we failed. That's a depressing thought. No, it's a hopeful one. Because it means even if individuals fall, the movement continues. The idea of freedom can't be killed. It just waits for the right person at the right time to carry it forward. They walked in silence after that, each lost in their own thoughts. Behind them, the mill disappeared into the darkness. Ahead, somewhere in the vast unknown, lay Thomas Webb's farm. And beyond that, more stations, more risks, more chances. The plantation was now 4 days and many miles behind them. Every step took them further from bondage and closer to freedom. The journey would be long. The dangers would be many. But Isaiah Thompson had proven something his father couldn't. That escape wasn't just about running fast. It was about thinking clearly, planning carefully, and never, ever giving up. As dawn approached, they found shelter in a dense grove of trees. They would rest here during the day and continue their journey when darkness returned. This was their life now, moving through shadows, trusting strangers, hoping against hope that each night brought them closer to a place where they could finally stand in daylight without fear. Isaiah looked at Rebecca sleeping beside him. He thought about Samuel back at the plantation, who'd given him the information that saved their lives. He thought about Ezra Mills, who risked everything to help people he'd never met. He thought about the Quakers ahead, who would continue the chain. And he realized something. Freedom wasn't just a destination. It was a network of people who believed in something bigger than themselves. It was the collective courage of everyone who refused to accept that any human should own another. Someday, Isaiah promised himself, he would be part of that network, not just as someone being helped, but as someone helping others. He would find his mother and sister. He would help Rebecca free her brother, and he would make sure his father's failed attempt wasn't in vain. Because every escape, successful or not, was an act of rebellion, and enough acts of rebellion accumulated over time would eventually break the system. That was the real plan, not just Isaiah's escape, but the eventual escape of everyone. The sun rose over the forest. Isaiah closed his eyes and let sleep take him. Tomorrow night they would continue, and the night after that, and every night until they reached freedom or died trying. Either way, they would never go back in chains.